Victoria's voice was ice-cold, each word precisely delivered like a blade. Pack your things and leave. Tonight. Isabella's heart hammered against her ribs. After 3 years of working as their housekeeper, after falling in love with their son Marcus, after believing she had found her place in this world of privilege and power, it was ending like this. "Mrs. Sterling, please." Isabella's voice trembled. "I've done nothing wrong. Marcus and I." "Marcus and you?" Victoria's laugh was sharp, cutting. "You actually believed my son could have a future with the help? How pathetically naive." Behind Victoria, Marcus Sterling stood in the doorway of his father's study, his designer suit immaculate, his dark hair perfectly styled. But his eyes, those eyes that once looked at Isabella with such warmth, now held nothing but cold indifference. Isabella turned to him, desperation bleeding through her voice. "Marcus, tell her. Tell her about us, about what we planned." Marcus stepped forward, his jaw set hard. "There was no us, Isabella. There was just a distraction. Something to pass the time while I figured out my real future." The words hit Isabella like physical blows. Her breath caught in her throat. Victoria smiled, satisfied. "Did you really think someone like you could belong in our world? A Mexican immigrant's daughter who cleansed toilets for a living?" Isabella's cheeks burned with shame, but she lifted her chin. "I thought love was enough." "Love?" Marcus scoffed. "Isabella, you're sweet, but you're not. You're not the kind of woman I marry. You're the kind of woman I have fun with." Victoria pulled out an envelope from her Hermes purse. "There's $5,000 in here. More than generous for someone in your position. Take it and disappear. Quietly." Isabella stared at the envelope, her vision blurring with unshed tears. The grand foyer felt like a tomb, the walls closing in around her. "I loved you," she whispered, looking at Marcus one last time. He shrugged, already turning away. "You'll get over it." With trembling fingers, Isabella took the envelope, not because she wanted their money, but because she needed it to survive, to start over, to rebuild. As she walked toward the massive front doors, her footsteps echoing in the silence, Victoria called out, "And Isabella? Don't even think about coming back. Security has your photograph." The doors closed behind her with a sound like thunder. If you're enjoying this story of resilience and unexpected twists, don't forget to subscribe and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. 5 years later. The boardroom of Sterling Industries was in chaos. Charts showing plummeting stock prices covered every wall. The company that had once been worth billions was hemorrhaging money faster than anyone could calculate. Marcus Sterling sat at the head of the polished table, his usually perfect appearance disheveled. His father, William Sterling, paced behind him like a caged animal. "The Henderson deal fell through," William announced grimly. "That's the third major contract we've lost this month." Victoria Sterling, her blonde hair now streaked with gray, clutched her pearls nervously. "There has to be something we can do, some investor willing to bail us out." Marcus ran his hands through his hair. "There is one company that's expressed interest. Esperanza Holdings. They've been buying up struggling firms and turning them around." William stopped pacing. "Do we know anything about them?" "They're incredibly private, family-owned. The CEO is supposed to be brilliant, turned a small investment into a billion-dollar empire in just 5 years." The conference room doors opened suddenly. A woman in a perfectly tailored navy suit walked in, her long black hair pulled back in an elegant chignon. Diamond earrings caught the light as she moved with the confidence of someone who owned every room she entered. Behind her walked an older man with silver hair and kind eyes, his expensive suit speaking of old money and quiet power. Marcus's face went white. Victoria gasped audibly. It was Isabella. But not the Isabella they remembered. This woman radiated power, success, confidence. She looked like she belonged in boardrooms and corner offices. The older man stepped forward with a warm smile. "Good afternoon. I'm Eduardo Herrera, chairman of Herrera Industries." Victoria's voice came out as barely a whisper. "Herrera Industries, the textile empire?" "Among other things, yes. We own 17 manufacturing companies, 3 shipping lines, and substantial real estate holdings across North and South America." Marcus found his voice. "Isabella? What are you doing here?" Isabella's smile was serene, unshakable. "I'm here for business, Marcus. As CEO of Esperanza Holdings, I'm considering whether Sterling Industries is worth saving." The silence in the room was deafening. Victoria sputtered. Your father is Eduardo Herrera? The Eduardo Herrera? Eduardo's expression cooled slightly. Isabella is my daughter, yes, though she's built her own empire entirely through her own brilliance and hard work. Isabella moved to the head of the table, pulling out files from her briefcase. When I left here 5 years ago, I went home to Mexico. My father had been looking for me for 20 years. She looked directly at Victoria. You see, when I was 2 years old, there was a kidnapping attempt. My parents sent me away with my nanny for my safety, but there was an accident. My nanny died, and I ended up in foster care. For 18 years, my family searched for me. Marcus leaned forward, stunned. Isabella, I had no idea. Of course you didn't. Isabella's voice was steady, controlled. You never asked about my past. You never wondered about my family. I was just the pretty maid you played with. Eduardo placed a protective hand on his daughter's shoulder. When Isabella came home, she threw herself into learning the business. She has a natural genius for strategy, for seeing opportunities others miss. Isabella opened her files. Sterling Industries is failing because you've made the same mistake over and over again. You judge people by their appearance, their background, their accent, instead of their abilities. She slid documents across the table. I'm prepared to buy your company's debt, all of it, for a fraction of what it's worth. William's face turned red. You can't just swoop in and… Actually, I can. Isabella's smile was ice cold now. Your creditors are very eager to work with someone who has the capital to pay immediately. Victoria stood up shakily. What do you want from us? Isabella looked around the room slowly, her gaze lingering on each family member. I want you to feel what I felt, powerless, dismissed, judged. Marcus's voice cracked. Isabella, please, I know I hurt you, but what? Her laugh was sharp. But you're sorry, but you've changed, but you realize now that I was worth something? She stood, smoothing her suit. You taught me something valuable, Marcus. You taught me that people will only value you as much as you value yourself. Eduardo stepped forward. The paperwork will be finalized by tomorrow. You'll remain as employees, but Isabella will be making all major decisions. As they prepared to leave, Marcus called out desperately. Isabella, wait. I never stopped thinking about you. I made a terrible mistake. Isabella paused at the door, not turning around. You made a choice, Marcus. You chose your family's approval over love. You chose status over substance. She finally turned, her eyes sad but resolute. The funny thing is, I would have loved you without the money, without the name, without any of it. But you couldn't love me without all the things I supposedly didn't have. Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. What happens now? Isabella's expression softened slightly. Now you learn what I learned 5 years ago. How to rebuild. How to find your worth beyond what others think of you. As they reached the door, Isabella looked back one final time. And Marcus? That $5,000 your mother gave me? I used it to buy my first stock. It's worth about $50 million now. 6 months later, Isabella sat in her new corner office overlooking the city, reading reports on Sterling Industries' remarkable turnaround. Under her leadership, the company had not only stabilized but was thriving. Her assistant knocked gently. Ms. Rodriguez, there's a Marcus Sterling here to see you. He says it's personal. Isabella sighed softly. Send him in. Marcus entered, looking humbler than she'd ever seen him. His expensive suit was gone, replaced by simple khakis and a button-down shirt. His hair was longer, less perfectly styled. Isabella, he began, his voice uncertain, I know I have no right to be here. She gestured to a chair across from her desk. What do you want, Marcus? I wanted to thank you for not destroying my family completely when you could have. Isabella studied his face. I'm not cruel, Marcus. I never was. I know that now. He looked down at his hands. I've been working at one of the companies you've turned around, starting from the bottom, learning what real work feels like. Isabella raised an eyebrow. And I understand now why you're so incredible. You didn't get where you are because of your name or your connections. You got here because you're brilliant, determined, and kind. Isabella's expression remained neutral. What do you want from me? Marcus met her eyes. Nothing. I just wanted you to know that losing you was the biggest mistake of my life. Not because of who your father is, not because of your success, but because I lost the most genuine, loving person I've ever known. Isabella was quiet for a long moment. Do you know what the hardest part was, Marcus? He shook his head. The hardest part was that I really believed you loved me. I thought love could bridge any gap, overcome any obstacle. Her voice grew stronger. But you taught me that some people's love is conditional, and I deserve unconditional love. Marcus nodded, tears in his eyes. You do. You deserve everything good in this world. Isabella stood up, walking to the window. I've found that unconditional love, Marcus. With my family, with friends who see me for who I am, with work that fulfills me. She turned back to him. I hope you find it too. Real love, the kind that doesn't care about bank accounts or social status. Marcus stood to leave. Isabella? For what it's worth, I am proud of you. Incredibly proud. She smiled, and for just a moment he saw the woman he'd fallen in love with years ago. Thank you, Marcus. That means something. After he left, Isabella returned to her desk. On it was a photo of her with her father, both of them laughing at some private joke. Next to it was a small frame containing $5,000. The first $5,000 she'd ever earned in business, a reminder of how far she'd come. Her phone buzzed with a message from her father. Dinner tonight? I want to hear about your new project helping immigrant women start their own businesses. Isabella smiled, typing back, Wouldn't miss it, Papa. She looked out at the city sprawling below her, thinking about the scared young woman who had walked out of the Sterling mansion 5 years ago. That woman had thought she needed someone else's approval to be worth something. This woman knew better. Isabella Rodriguez had built an empire not for revenge, but for herself. Not to prove she was worthy of love, but because she finally understood she had always been worthy. And that made all the difference. If this story of resilience, family, and finding your true worth inspired you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We love connecting with our global audience. Until next time, remember, your worth isn't determined by others' opinions, but by the strength you find within yourself. Keep dreaming, keep building, and keep believing in your own incredible potential. 5 years later, 6 months later.